Hello friends, and welcome back to Chinese history and mythology. In our last episode, we pulled the camera away from the war in the state of Zhou and turned it back towards Zheng and Lu. We first talked about how things ended for Yin Qiushu. After Zheng Yuangong finished his campaign against Zhou and came home, he gave a very generous reward to the general Shang, but in his heart, he could not let go of Yang Koshu, who had been killed by a hidden arrow. Because he could not find the real killer, he ordered the whole army to hand over pigs, chickens, and dogs, and had the shamans burn cursed texts for 3 days and 3 nights, asking the spirits to hunt down the man who had fired that cold arrow. On the 3rd day of the ritual, a wild-haired man stepped out from the crowd, dropped to his knees in front of him, and burst into tears. He said he was the soul of Yin Qiushu. He said that, back at Zhou, he had been the first to climb the city wall and raise the flag, and had done nothing to fail his country. But the traitor Zhou, still angry over their earlier fight over the chariot, shot him in the back from below with a secret arrow and killed him. After saying this, he reached for his own throat with both hands, dug his fingers in, and suddenly, blood sprayed out. He fell backward and died on the spot. When everyone rushed over to look, they realized that the body lying there was actually Gongsun Zidu. That was when they finally understood who the real killer was. Yin Koshu's ghost had taken over Zidu's body, spoken the truth in front of his lord, and then claimed his life there and then. Zheng Zhuanggong could only sigh. He had someone build a temple for Yin Qiushu in Ying Valley, gave him the title Dr. Ying, and ordered regular sacrifices for him every year. Just as Yin Qiushu's case was finally settled, an even more shocking piece of news came from the state of Lu. Lu Yingong had been killed by his own chief minister, Gongzi Hui, who then put Yingong's younger brother Gui on the throne. In the last episode, we went through that whole plot in detail. Yingong had actually wanted to fulfill his father's last wish by one day handing the throne over to his younger brother Gui, and had already built himself a retirement palace at Tukyu. Gongzi Hui first tried to persuade him to strike first and kill his brother, got scolded for it, then turned around and went to Gui and said, "The Lord plans to kill you." He then used Yingong's yearly visit to the Zhongwu temple as his opportunity. When the time came for the sacrifice, Gongzi Hui sent men into Minister Wei's house at night, killed Yingong in his sleep, and then threw all the blame onto Wei's family. Gui took the throne, made Gongzi Hui Grand Steward, and handed the military power into his hands. The people of Lu all knew what had really happened, but with Gongzi Hui holding the army and being hard and vicious by nature, nobody dared say it out loud. After Zheng Yuangong heard the whole story, he weighed his options. He could take the chance to punish Lu and avenge Yingong, or he could go with the flow and turn Lu's new ruler into an ally. His chief minister Zhang suggested that since Lu and Zheng had always been close allies, this was the moment to choose cooperation. Sure enough, it did not take long before the new lord of Lu sent an envoy to restore friendly ties and invited Zheng Guanggong to meet at a place called Yue. There, the two sides cut a covenant in blood, swore to be friendly and keep close contact. From then on, envoys went back and forth between Lu and Zheng all the time, and on the surface the relationship even looked closer than before. Readers of the history books tend to curse a bit at this point. They say that a man like Gongzi Hui, who had spent years leading troops, one day helping Wei attack Zheng, the next helping Wei attack Song, had long since shown clear signs of arrogance and rebellion. If, back when he first brought up the idea of killing Gui Lu Yingong had exposed him on the spot, arrested him, and punished him for treason, then he would have saved his brother's life and his own. But Yingong's mind was full of, "I want to give up the throne." He only half spoke his plans, yet never really let go of power. In the end, he did not manage to complete his promise to his younger brother, and even lost his own life in the process. As for the Zhongwu temple, he went there every year, made his vows and offerings year after year, and in the end, died right next to that same temple. That, too, feels like a bitter joke written by fate. At the end of the story, we planted a new question mark. Prince Feng, son of Song Wugong, had escaped to Zhang years ago to avoid disaster and had lived quietly there for more than 10 years, never making a move. One day, a messenger from Song arrived in Zheng and said they wanted to welcome Prince Feng home and make him ruler. Zheng Zhuanggong's first reaction was, "Is this a trap? Did the people of Song really want him to come back and be their ruler? Or did they just want to trick him into returning so they could get rid of him cleanly? How would he test Song's true intentions. What exactly was written in the official letter that had been sent from Psalm? All of this is what we are going to explore in today's episode. Let's start with Duke Shang of Song. The moment this man took the throne, he acted like a gambler who suddenly got hooked. His favorite thing in the world was starting wars, especially wars against Zheng. He attacked Zhang not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. And the reason was simple. His cousin, Prince Feng, had been living in Zheng for years as a political refugee. Duke Shang never felt safe about that. He was always afraid that one day, this cousin would come back and take the throne from him. So he kept picking fights with Zheng, as if starting wars could soothe that sense of insecurity buried in his chest. Now, there was a very important minister in Song named Huadu. He was the Grand Steward, the closest thing Song had to a prime minister. And he happened to be very close to Prince Feng. Every time Duke Shang wanted to attack Zheng again, Huadu never dared speak up, but deep inside he was exhausted and annoyed. Outwardly, he stood with Duke Shang, but inside, he was unhappy with the whole situation. Then there was another key figure, Kung Fuji. He was the commander in charge of Song's military, basically the Minister of War, and he held the real power over the army. Since Huadu hated all these wars, it was only natural that he blamed Kung Fuji for them. But because Kung Fuji was the man Duke Shang trusted the most, Huadu didn't dare move against him yet. He could only swallow his anger and wait. Later, Song launched a campaign against the state of Dai, and the whole thing ended in disaster. The army was destroyed, and Kung Fuji barely escaped with his life. The people of Song had had enough. Everyone complained, saying things like, "Our ruler doesn't care about us at all. He starts wars whenever he wants. Our husbands die on the battlefield, leaving behind widows and orphans. The population is shrinking. How are we supposed to live like this?" Huadu saw how much anger the people carried, so he secretly sent his men to spread a rumor around town. All these war plans came from Commander Kang. The common people were already furious. Once they heard this, they believed it instantly, and all their resentment shifted toward Kung Fuji. At this time, Huadu heard something else, something that pushed his mind completely off the edge. Kang Fuji had remarried. His new wife was from the Wei family, and she was extremely beautiful, famous across the whole state of Song. Huadu had heard the rumors for years, but never saw her himself. Until one spring day, Lady Wei was going back to her mother's home, and on the way, she joined her family to visit their ancestors' graves in the countryside. It was early spring, willows budding, flowers everywhere, young men and women out enjoying the sunshine. Lady Wei sat inside her carriage. Maybe she was in a good mood that day, and she shouldn't have lifted the curtain. But she did, and that one glance happened to fall directly into Huadu's line of sight. Huadu asked around. When he learned that she was Kung Fuji's wife, he froze. The only thing left in his heart was, so the world really does have a woman this beautiful. The rumors didn't exaggerate at all. From that day on, Huadu thought of her day and night. He thought about her while eating. He thought about her while sleeping. And the more he thought, the more twisted it became. He felt that if he could have such a woman in his household, he wouldn't care about anything else for the rest of his life. Just looking at her would be enough. Slowly, the desire turned into a plan. He thought, if I want this woman, there's only one way. I have to get rid of her husband first. So, yes, his decision to eliminate Kung Fuji started from lust. That year happened to be the 10th year of King Wan of Zhou, and spring meant a major royal hunting season. Song used the opportunity to hold a huge military drill. Kung Fuji was out on the training grounds giving commands and drilling the troops. Huadu seized this moment again and sent people to spread a new rumor among the soldiers. Commander Kang and the Grand Steward have already decided to launch a massive attack on Zheng. The moment the soldiers heard another war was coming, their faces turned pale. They gathered in small groups, whispering complaints. Some soldiers even went to Huadu's residence to beg him to stop the war. Huadu purposely kept his gates tightly shut. He only allowed the gatekeeper to speak through the crack in the door in a gentle voice, comforting the soldiers, saying, "Don't worry. The Grand Steward understands your suffering. but he never came out. This delay made the crowd outside grow larger and more upset. Some came holding weapons. The emotional pressure in the air grew heavier by the minute. As evening fell, the crowd was already restless. People shouted, "We want to see the Grand Steward. He must stand up for us." There's an old saying, "It's easy to gather a crowd that it's hard to make them leave." When Huadu felt the timing was just right, he put on armor, strapped on his sword, and walked out slowly. He ordered the gates to be opened and had the soldiers line up so they wouldn't disorder the scene. Standing at the door, he started with a sympathetic speech. He said he understood how tired everyone was, how many had died, how many families were torn apart. His gentle tone calmed the soldiers down. Then he suddenly turned the conversation. He said, "Do you know who keeps pushing for these wars? It's Commander Kang. I've begged the ruler many times to protect the people, but the ruler only listens to him, not me. Now he wants to attack Zheng again within 3 days. Tell me, what did the people of Shang do to deserve this suffering?" That speech lit the soldiers' anger like a torch. They clenched their teeth and shouted, "Kill him! Kill him!" Huadu pretended to stop them. "Don't act rashly. If Commander Kang finds out and reports you to the ruler, none of you will survive." The soldiers grew even angrier. They shouted back, "Our fathers, sons, relatives, half of them have already died from these endless wars. If this continues, we'll all die anyway. If we're going to die, we might as well kill this man who caused so much suffering." Huadu then acted as if he were hesitating. He said, "Commander Kong is hateful, yes, but he's still the ruler's favorite minister. To move against him means offending the ruler. This can't be done lightly." The soldiers roared, "As long as the Grand Steward leads us, we're not even afraid of that useless ruler." A few men grabbed Huadu's sleeves and pushed him onto a chariot. The message was clear, "You're our leader now. We're following you." The driver pulled the chariot forward, and the soldiers surrounded Huadu, shouting as they charged toward Kang Fuji's home. They surrounded the entire mansion. Huadu told them, "Don't shout yet. Let me knock on the door. Then we act together." By this time, it was fully dark. Inside the house, Kang Fuji was drinking. Suddenly, he heard urgent knocks on the gate. The servant went to ask and came back saying, "The Grand Steward is here in person. He says there's an important military business." Kang Fuji immediately adjusted his clothes and hat and hurried toward the gate. He opened it. The moment the door swung wide, the soldiers shouted and rushed inside. Kang Fuji panicked and turned to run back inside, but Huadu was already leading men up the main hall, shouting, "The criminal who harms the people is right here. What are you waiting for?" Kang Fuji didn't even have time to speak. A blade swung down. His head hit the ground. After the killing, Huadu rushed with a few trusted men into the back courtyard, straight into the inner rooms. They dragged Lady Wei out, put her onto a carriage, and raced back toward his home. He thought he finally had the woman he had been dreaming about, but Lady Wei quietly untied the silk ribbon at her waist during the ride and looped it around her own neck. When they reached Huadu's door and lifted the carriage curtain, she was already dead. Huadu sighed, but not for long. He ordered his men to bury her quietly outside the city and warned everyone to keep silent. In the end, he didn't get a single moment of the pleasure he imagined. Instead, he added another layer of blood to his hands. The soldiers saw that their commander was dead, so they stormed into the Kang household and looted everything. Kang Fuji had only one son, Mujinfu, and he was still very young. A family servant carried the boy out of the chaos and fled to the state of Lu. Later on, the famous Confucius Gangqiu was the 6th generation descendant of this same Mujinfu. But that's a story for another time. Now, back to Duke Shang. Someone reported to him, "Commander Kang has been killed by rampaging soldiers." Duke Shang panicked at first. When he found out Huadu might be involved, he got furious and ordered Huadu to come to the palace immediately. Huadu pretended to be very ill and said he couldn't get out of bed. Duke Shang was so angry that he decided to go in person to the Kang residence, to Mornan, to investigate. When Huadu heard the ruler was coming, he quickly came up with another plan. He called another high-ranking military official and said to him privately, "You saw it yourself. Our ruler trusted King Fuji more than anyone. Now that your own soldiers killed him, the ruler will surely investigate. Can you claim you had no responsibility?" And think about this. Back when the former ruler, Duke Mu of Song, passed the throne to our current ruler, he did it for the good of the state. But the current ruler never appreciated that. Instead, he forgot Duke Mu's kindness, favored Kong Fuji, and followed him into reckless wars against Zheng. Now Kong Fuji is dead, practically heaven showing its will. If you use this chance to eliminate the ruler as well, and then bring back Duke Mu's son, Prince Feng, from Xing'an, and make him the new ruler, you won't just clear yourself of all blame, you'll be the man who restored the rightful heir. That's a huge achievement, isn't it? The minister hesitated, then said, "What you just said actually matches what many of us have been thinking." So he gathered soldiers and waited in ambush at the gate of the Kong residence. When Duke Shang's carriage arrived, they swarmed forward and hacked him to death. Meanwhile, Hua Du put on mourning clothes as soon as he received word. He rushed to Kong's house crying as if his heart were breaking. He beat the mourning drum and summoned all the ministers. He then made a show of arresting a few soldiers, executed them on the spot, and told the world, the ruler was killed by rebel soldiers. After that, Huadu made another suggestion. He said, "In the past, the former ruler's son, Prince Feng, stayed in Zheng. The people of our state have never forgotten the kindness of the late Duke Mu. Now that our current ruler is gone, we should bring Prince Feng back and let him inherit the throne." All the civil and military officials answered on the surface, "Yes, yes," then turned and walked away. No one dared to disagree. Huadu immediately sent envoys to Xin. On one hand, they brought the official notice of Duke Shang's death. On the other hand, they formally asked Duke Wang of Zhen to send Prince Feng back to Song. At the same time, Huadu took a huge amount of gold, silver, and precious goods from the state treasury and sent them as gifts to the other lords of Zhou. The message was very clear. Please recognize Prince Feng as the new ruler of Song and take care of him in the future. Now let's go back to Zheng. The envoys from Song arrived and presented their letter. Duke Wang of Zhang read it and quickly understood what had happened in Song. He knew there had already been a change of ruler inside Song, so he stopped hesitating, got the carriages and horses ready, and prepared to send Prince Feng, who had been living in Zhang as a refugee for many years, back to his homeland. On the day of departure, Prince Feng knelt down in front of Duke Zhuan and cried. He said, "If you had not taken me in back then, I would have died long ago. Now I can go back and continue my family line and worship my ancestors. All of this is thanks to you. From today on, I will respect you as if you were the son of heaven himself. I will never dare to do anything that goes against your kindness." Duke Zhuang's eyes also turned red when he heard this. He lowered his head and wept as well. The two of them parted with deep emotion at the roadside. Prince Feng went back to Song and took the throne smoothly. In the history books, he is known as Duke Shuang of Song. Huadu continued to serve as his grand steward, holding great power in his hands. The gifts that Song had sent out were accepted by all the other rulers. Later, the lords of Qi, Lu, and Zheng met in a place called Ji. There, they officially recognized Duke Zhuang of Song as a legitimate ruler. At the same time, they also indirectly confirmed Huadu's power as the chief minister of Song. Later, historians sighed over this and said, if, at that time, the rulers of the other states had refused to accept those bribes and had kept a bit of principle, a man like Huadu might not have been able to stay in power so easily as a traitorous minister and villain. Here, the storyline of Song can pause for a while. Now we shift our view to the conflict between the state of Qi and the northern Rong tribes. After the meeting at Ji, Duke Shi of Qi set off to return home. Halfway along the road, he received an urgent report. It said that the northern Rong leader had sent 2 generals, Da Liang and Chao Liang, leading more than 10,000 troops to invade Qi in force. They had already captured the city of Shua, and now were pressing straight toward Lixia. The minister in charge of defending that area could not hold them back and kept sending urgent messages asking the ruler to return as soon as possible to put out the fire. Duke Shi of Qi understood at once that this was no small raid. In the past, the Northern Rong only harassed the border in small groups, grabbed some goods, and ran away. This time, however, they were launching a large-scale attack. If they could just fight their way in and leave whenever they wanted, the northern border would never be peaceful again. He made a quick decision. He would rush back to sit in command himself, and at the same time send envoys to the states of Lu, Wei, and Zheng to ask for help. He asked those 3 states to send troops to assist Qi. He himself took Prince Yuan, Prince Daizhong, and others, and hurried back to Liezha to prepare for the defense. Over in Zheng, Duke Zhou heard the news that the Northern Rong had attacked their ally Qi. He immediately called his heir, Crown Prince Hu, and said, "Qi is our ally. In the past, whenever we fought, Qi always sent troops to help us. Now that they are asking us for help, we cannot delay. We must send soldiers at once." So he chose 300 war chariots and made Crown Prince Hu the commander-in-chief. Gao Qiumi was assigned as his deputy, and Judan was appointed vanguard. They marched overnight toward Qi. When they arrived at Liezha, they first went to meet Duke Shi of Qi. At that time, the reinforcements from Lu and Wei had not yet reached the battlefield. Duke Shi was deeply moved. He personally went out of the city to reward the Zhang troops and invited Crown Prince Hu into the command tent to discuss how to push the Rong forces back. Crown Prince Hu said, "The Northern Rong army is mostly infantry. They move fast and charge hard, but their battle lines are easy to break, and once broken, they fall apart quickly. Our side uses chariots. We are not as good at chasing, but once we steady our formation, it is harder for them to scatter us. More importantly, the Rong people have a rough and greedy nature. They do not really care about discipline. When they win, they all rush forward to grab the spoils. When they lose, no one wants to cover the retreat. This kind of army is perfect for a trap." He went on. "Besides, they just won a victory. Their confidence must be sky high right now, so they will surely attack again on their own. If we send one unit to meet them and pretend to lose on purpose, then turn around and run, they will chase us with everything they have. At that moment, if I have already set an ambush behind them, then, when their vanguard crashes into our hidden troops, their lines will fall into chaos. Once they are in disorder, we strike them from both front and back. They will definitely collapse, and then we can win a big victory." Duke Shi of Qi slapped the table and said, "This plan is brilliant. Let's do exactly as you say. Qi will hide in the east and block their front attack. Zhen will hide in the north and hit them from behind. If we close the trap from both sides, they should have no chance." After the plan was set, Crown Prince Hu took Gao Qiumi and the others and quietly divided the Zhen troops into 2 ambush positions to the north. Duke Xian, his side, called Prince Yuan and ordered him to hide with his men outside the east gate, waiting for the Rong soldiers who would chase the retreating force. He then ordered Prince Daizhong to take a unit and act as bait. They were only allowed to lose, not to win. As long as they could lure the Rong army into the ambush, they would be credited with success. Once everything was ready, Duke Shi ordered Prince Daizhong to lead his men out of the city to challenge the enemy. The Northern Rong General Xiaoliang brought 3,000 elite cavalry out to meet them. After a fierce clash, Daizhong deliberately pretended to be exhausted and turned his chariot around to flee. He did not return by the nearest north gate, but circled the city, running toward the east. Xiaoliang thought the enemy had truly been defeated. He was thrilled and chased hard. Daliang, seeing the front troops taking the advantage, ordered the main force to follow. They planned to break through the city in one stroke. When the Rong forces reached the area outside the east gate, suddenly, the sound of drums and signal cannons exploded around them. From behind reeds and thorn bushes, a large mass of troops charged out. They were all Qi soldiers who had been lying in ambush. They appeared like a dark wall in front of the Rong army. Xiaoliang shouted on the spot, "We've walked right into a trap." He had no choice but to turn his horse around and retreat. The sudden change threw the formation behind him into confusion. The whole line turned into a mess, and many wrong soldiers simply spun around and ran. At this point, Prince Daizhong turned his chariot back, joined forces with Prince Yuan, and launched a counterattack. Daliang ordered Xiaoliang to lead the front troops while he covered the rear. They fought while pulling back, trying to drag the broken army toward the north. The wrong soldiers who fell behind were either cut down or captured. They kept retreating until they reached Magpie Mountain. There, they finally felt the chasing troops were farther away, and they stopped to catch their breath. Just as they were about to set up camp and cook, shouts suddenly echoed through the valley. A fresh army rushed out of the mountain pass. This was Zheng's general Gao Qiumi. Daliang and Xiaoliang had to get back on their horses and fight again in a rush, but they had already lost their will. They fought and retreated at the same time, and Gao Qiumi kept pressing behind them. After they ran a few more li, noise broke out in front of them again. Crown Prince, who appeared ahead with his troops. The wrong army completely lost its formation. They were surrounded from front and back. In the chaos, Xiaoliang was shot in the head by an arrow from Zhou and fell from his horse, dead. Daliang tried to break out alone, but ran straight into Crown Prince, who cut him down from his horse with one stroke. In this battle, 300 wrong soldiers were taken alive, and the number of wrong killed was beyond counting. Crown Prince, who ordered Daliang and Xiaoliang's heads, along with the prisoners, to be sent to Duxi of Qi as proof of victory. When Duxi saw the results, he was so happy he almost could not close his mouth. He said to Crown Prince, who, if a hero like you had not come to my aid, our state of Qi might have already lost the north. Today, the peace of Qi is all thanks to you. Crown Prince, who answered modestly, I only used a little trick by luck. I don't dare accept such high praise. Duxi then sent messengers to stop the reinforcements coming from Lu and Wei, telling them the battle was already over and they could safely return home. He held a great feast in the camp to honor Crown Prince, who, during the banquet, Duxi once again brought up the marriage proposal from before. He wanted to marry his most beloved daughter to Crown Prince, who refused again and again. After the feast ended, Duxi still could not give up the idea. He sent his minister Ye Zhongnian to find Gao Qiumi in private. Ye Zhongnian said, our ruler truly admires the Crown Prince from the bottom of his heart and wants to become his in-law. Last time we sent people to Zheng to propose. We were refused. This time we just fought side by side and won a great victory. The moment is perfect. If you can help make this marriage happen, our ruler is willing to give you 2 pairs of white jade discs and 2,000 taels of gold. Gao Qiumi accepted this task and went to see Crown Prince, who he described Duxi's sincerity in great detail and even added, having such a powerful state as your in-law will also benefit you in the future. After hearing all this, Crown Prince, who only said, when there was no war, I already did not dare to climb that high. Now I have come here under my father's orders to rescue Qi, and we have just won a battle. If I turn around and marry their ruler's daughter right now, people will definitely say, I used military merit to force a marriage. If that kind of talk spreads, how can I face the world later? Gao Qiumi tried to persuade him many times, but Crown Prince, who never changed his mind. The next day, she sent He Zhangnian again to bring up the proposal, and Crown Prince, who had no choice but to give another reason. He said, I have not yet reported this matter to my father. If I decide this marriage on my own, without his approval, it means I break the rules and deserve punishment. After saying that, he formally took his leave from Duke. Xian led his troops back to Zheng. She was so angry that he said, I have such a good daughter. Am I supposed to worry that she will never find a husband? He said that with his mouth, but in his heart, of course, he felt unhappy. And that was the end of this proposed marriage. Once he returned, he honestly told Duke Zhuang everything that had happened in Qi and why he had refused the marriage. Roughly, he said something like this. Father, the Lord of Qi wanted to marry his daughter to me, but I felt that talking about marriage right after winning a battle would look like I was using my military success to trade for a bride, so I politely turned it down. Duke Zhuang listened and did not look angry at all. On the contrary, he actually sounded a bit proud. He said, This son of mine will be able to earn his own achievements in the future. He does not need to rely on marriage to climb up to some higher branch. As long as you have real ability, you will have plenty of fine matches to choose from later on." On the surface, father and son seemed to agree very well. Both of them looked as if they were acting with a lot of backbone. But when the minister Zhou heard about this, he started to feel worried inside. Zhou went to find another senior minister, Jiao Qiumi, and had a private talk with him. He said, "Think about it. Our Lord has many favored concubines. Among the sons, those women have given him, Prince Tu, Prince Yi, and Prince Wen all rely on their mother's favor. Each of them is secretly planning for the future and wants to fight for the throne. Even though Crown Prince, who is the official heir, his position is not as secure as it looks. If the Crown Prince could form a marriage tie with a great power like Qi, then if trouble broke out in Zheng one day, at least he would have support from outside." But what did he do? Qi came to our door with a proposal, and he himself shut the door in their face. Even if Qi had not taken the initiative, we should have been trying to win them over. That kind of marriage gives him wings. Instead, he cut off his own wings with his own hands. You went to Qi with him, didn't you? Why didn't you stop him? Gao Qiumi spread his hands and said, "I did try to persuade him. He simply would not listen. There was nothing I could do." Zhou sighed and felt the Crown Prince was a bit too bookish and idealistic. But since the matter was already done, he could not press the point. Later, some people even wrote a poem to comment on this decision by a Crown Prince who, the meaning was more or less this: a great man sometimes needs to stand firm, but sometimes he also has to be flexible. Refusing a marriage is not always wrong, but it is not always wise either. The poem used two pieces from the Book of Songs as examples, Zaiku and Bagou, hinting that when Duke Wan of Lu married Wen Jiang, it looked like he was getting a bargain at first. But later on, a whole basket of trouble followed. Those, of course, are later stories. Now, let's go back to Zhao Qiumi. He had already been on good terms with Prince Wen for some time. After hearing Zhu's analysis, his heart leaned even more toward Prince Wen. He began to visit Prince Wen on purpose more often, drinking with him, talking with him, having secret conversations. The seeds of future plotting were planted bit by bit in those private gatherings. Crown Prince, who noticed this change in Gao Qiumi, he could see it with his own eyes, and it made him uneasy. So, he went to speak to his father and said, "Father, lately Qiumi has been getting very close to Prince Wen. They meet in private and talk alone a lot. I do not know what they are planning, but I have a bad feeling about it." Duke Shuang listened and kept this in mind. Not long after, he summoned Gao Qiumi and spoke to him directly. He repeated the Crown Prince's suspicion and scolded him a bit. "You're spending too much time with Prince Wen. What exactly are you trying to do?" The Crown Prince already has opinions about this. Of course, Zhao Qiumi would not admit anything. He quickly put on a deeply wronged expression and insisted he had no such intentions. But as soon as he left the audience hall, he went straight to Prince Wen and repeated Duke Shuang's words to him, word for word. When Prince Wen heard it, he flew into a rage. He said, "You see, father once wanted to make you chief minister, but that Crown Prince blocked him. That's why you didn't get the top post. Now, just because you talk to me a bit more, he runs off to complain and tries to cut us apart. While father is still alive, he already behaves like this. When father is gone, do you really think he will let us live peacefully?" Gao Qiumi gave a cold laugh and said, "The Crown Prince is soft-hearted and hesitant. He cannot hurt us. You do not need to worry, my lord." From that moment on, Prince Wen and Crown Prince who were locked into a deadly enmity. Later, when Zhao Qiumi murdered his ruler, killed the Crown Prince, and set Prince Wen on the throne instead, the root of it all could be traced back to this little conflict. Now that we have finished this dark thread inside Zheng, let us move on to Zhu's next idea. Zhu saw that the Crown Prince had already refused the marriage with Qi and there was no way to pull that back. So he changed direction and offered another plan. He said to Crown Prince Hu, "Since the match with Qi has fallen through, we should take a different route. You might as well go to the state of Chen to seek a bride, and at the same time build good relations with Wei. Right now, the situation is like this. Chen and Wei have just made peace with us. If you can marry into Chen and also form an alliance with Wei, then Chen, Wei, and Zhen will be like the three legs of a bronze tripod, supporting each other so that none of them can be easily knocked over. Crown Prince, who thought about it and felt this made sense. So he asked Jizhu to report the plan to Duke Shuang. Duke Shuang agreed that this was a solid strategy. He sent envoys to Chen to propose marriage. The ruler of Chen accepted the proposal. Crown Prince, who then personally went to Chen to welcome the ruler's daughter, Lady Gui, as his wife. That gave him a proper political marriage of his own. Meanwhile, over in the state of Lu, Duke Wan of Lu was also thinking about his own marriage. When he took the throne, he was already no longer young. By ancient standards, he should have had sons long ago, responsible for continuing the family line. Yet he still did not have a formal wife. The minister Zhang Sunda advised him, according to the old rites, a ruler should already have a son at 15 to carry on the clan. You still do not even have a main wife. Later, to whom will you pass this throne? Prince Hui heard this and seized the chance to offer a suggestion. He said, I have heard that the Lord of Kia has a most beloved daughter named Wen Jiang. She was originally meant to marry Crown Prince Hu of Xin. Now that this match has failed, why not take the chance and ask the Lord of Qi for her hand? My lord, Duke Wan's heart moved as soon as he heard this. He said, Good. This can be arranged. He immediately sent Prince Hui as his envoy to Qi to formally propose marriage. On the Qi side, Duke Shi was not against the idea of a marriage with Lu. However, at that time, Wen Jiang was still sick and weak because of the blow from Crown Prince, whose refusal. So Du Shi said for the moment, Let us wait until my daughter has recovered a bit. Then we can discuss this matter in detail. The palace maids, though, quietly carried this happy news into Wen Jiang's chamber and told her, At this point, we need to pause and talk a bit about Wen Jiang herself. Duke Shi of Qi had two daughters, both famous beauties. The elder daughter married into the state of Wei and later became the very well-known Lady Xuanjiang of Wei. Her story will come later in its own episode. The younger daughter is the one we are talking about now. Wen Jiang's beauty was the kind that people called exaggeratedly stunning. The books say that her eyes were like clear autumn, water bright, deep, and with a touch of sadness in them. Her face was like a newly opened lotus flower, tender, luminous, and fresh. If people had to find something to compare her to, they would say she was like a flower, but more alive and knowing than any flower. They would say she was like fine jade, but warmer and more human than jade. In short, she was one of those peerless beauties that are rare through all ages. On top of that, Wen Jiang was not just beautiful, she was also very talented. She read widely, could recite poems by heart, could write, and when she talked about old stories and current affairs, she was in no way worse than the men around her. She spoke with style and grace, so people called her Wen Jiang, Jiang of letters. Duke, she also had a son named Zhou. Zhou was the classic spoiled young master. He loved wine, loved women, and had no serious interests. He and Wen Jiang were half-siblings with the same father and different mothers, and close in age, he was only 2 years older than her. From childhood, the two of them grew up together in the palace. They studied together, they played together. There were no strict separations between them. As Wen Jiang grew more and more beautiful, Zhou reached the age when Juzara wakes up, watching the girl beside him slowly become such a stunning young woman, clever, charming, and quick with words. His feelings started to cross the line. Wen Jiang, for her part, was not the type to stay strictly within the bounds of propriety. Her nature was bold and unrestrained. She did not have strong inner limits of what is allowed and what is not. When she spoke, she often repeated the flirtatious jokes and spicy topics heard in the streets outside, without any sense of shame. That made it even easier to stir Zhu's imagination. Zhu himself was also handsome, tall, fair-skinned, with red lips and fine features. He was the kind of man people would turn to look at when he walked down the street. If these two had not shared the same father, and if they had been born into different families, people would have said they were a perfect match made in heaven. But fate placed them under the same roof. According to ritual and law, there could never be any romantic relationship between them. Yet, inside the deep palace, the two of them had been close since childhood, with very few clear boundaries between male and female. Little by little, when they walked together, their hands would naturally reach for each other. When they sat together, their shoulders would lean against one another. Their gestures became more and more intimate. The only thing that kept them from crossing the last line was probably the palace maids who kept coming in and out. So they still had some restraint and did not dare go all the way in bed. To put it plainly, Duke Shi and his wife spoiled their children too much. They did not draw the lines between brother and sister early enough, and they did not arrange for men and women to have separate quarters in time. In the end, by letting things flow like this, they slowly raised the relationship worse than beasts, and the disasters that followed Zhou being killed later, and the state itself falling into chaos can all be traced back to this early, blurry intimacy between brother and sister. Now, back to that broken marriage. Ever since Crown Prince, who had defeated the wrong people, Duke, she had been praising him in front of Wenjiang from time to time. He told her how brave and talented the Crown Prince was, and said he planned to marry her to such a hero. Wenjiang listened, shy and happy, and quietly took this marriage as her destined future. Then, the news changed. She heard that Crown Prince who had firmly refused the match. The breath in her chest immediately stuck. Disappointment, hurt, humiliation, all of it pressed together. She felt as if her whole self had been emptied out. Sometimes she felt cold. Sometimes she felt burning hot. Her mind wandered. She could not eat. She could not sleep. Her body grew weaker and weaker day by day. Later, someone used a poem to describe Wenjiang at this time. The meaning was roughly this. A 16-year-old girl is shut away in the inner chambers. She does not know how to openly express her feelings. A single love sits on her heart, but she cannot say it out loud, so she can only frown in silence. What she truly wants is that free-flying phoenix in the sky, but she feels she is locked inside a fenced yard, forced to stare at the household rooster. The more she stares, the deeper her sorrow. When Prince Zhou heard that Wenjiang was seriously ill, he kept looking for chances to visit her, under the excuse of checking on my sister. At some unknown point, he simply started walking straight into her bedroom. He would sit next to her bed, hold her hand, support her by the shoulder, and keep asking where it hurt and how she felt. Even though there were always palace maids around, his behavior had clearly gone far beyond what was proper between brother and sister. One day, Duke Shu suddenly decided to visit his daughter's room. As soon as he walked in, he saw Zhou sitting by the bed. His face turned dark immediately. "Right there," he scolded his son. "You may be brother and sister, but there are still rules about avoiding suspicion. From now on, if you want to ask about her health, let the maids do it. You do not need to come yourself." Zhou had no choice but to get up slowly and leave. After that, Duke Shi became more alert and started to control how often the two met. The siblings saw less and less of each other. Before long, Duke Shi arranged for Zhou to marry a princess from Shang. Zhou doted on his new wife and went to see Wenjiang even less. In the deep palace, Wenjiang now had only loneliness, resentment, shame, and love twisted together in her heart. Whenever she thought about that vague, impossible affection she had felt before, she grew even more depressed. Her body was already weak, and her illness grew worse. She clearly had things in her heart, but there was no one she could speak to. She could only hide under the blanket at night and weep in secret. Someone wrote about her in verse later, saying that she was like spring grass, her eyes clouded by the spring mist, lying alone day after day in her inner room. The more her resentment piled up, the more her beauty faded. Yet the fire of longing in her heart burned hotter and hotter. At night, facing the moonlight, her thoughts must have flown out 1,000 times in her dreams. Now let's go back again to Duke Wan of Lu. When Duke Wan of Lu took the throne, he was already at an age when, by ancient standards, he should already have sons and daughters, but he still did not have a proper main wife. The reminder from Zheng Senda pushed him to take his marriage seriously. Prince Sui seized the moment to bring up the idea of marrying Wenjiang. Duke Wan sent him to Qi to propose Duke Shi of Qi, on his side, said with his mouth that when Zheng was sick, and that he wanted to wait for her to recover a bit before making any decisions. When the palace maids brought this news to Wenjiang, her feelings were very complicated. She understood what this marriage meant. All hope with Zheng was gone. Now, the match had shifted to Lu. Even so, it was still better than lying alone in bed with no future in sight. So in her heart, she gained at least a small sense of something to hold on to, and her illness began to ease a little. Later on, the rulers of Qi and Lu met again at the place called Ji, mainly to confirm the status of the new ruler of Song, Duke Shuang of Song. During this meeting, Duke Huan of Lu once more, in person, brought up the marriage with Duke Shi of Qi, hoping to formally secure this Qi princess as his future wife. This time, Duke Shi still did not give a clear yes, but he did not refuse either. He only said, "Next year, we can discuss this matter in more detail." Duke Huan of Lu now had only one thing on his mind: to lock in this marriage. He knew very clearly that this was not just about marrying a beautiful wife. It was about finding a powerful father-in-law state to stand behind Lu. So this time, he decided to go in person. He went to a place called Ying to meet Duke Shi of Qi again. Ying was basically on the border between Qi and Lu, a convenient spot for both sides to use as a meeting place. When Duke Huan met Duke Shi in Ying, his attitude was extremely sincere. He brought up the earlier proposal again and again. Duke Shi was moved by this persistence, and in the end, he finally nodded and said, "All right, this marriage is settled." Right there in Ying, Duke Huan presented the betrothal gifts. The amount was double the usual standard, and the ceremony was very grand. You can think of it this way. He was using this gesture to say to Duke Shi, "I truly value your daughter, and I truly value the bond between Qi and Lu." Duke Shi looked at all those gifts, and his face was full of satisfaction and joy. The two lords agreed that in the 9th month, Duke Shi would personally escort Wenjiang to Lu to be married. On the Lu side, Duke Huan would send Prince Hui ahead of time to Qi to receive the bride. In Qi, once the news spread, Crown Prince Zhou heard it too. When he learned that Wenjiang was really going to marry into another state, all those feelings he had been suppressing for so long were stirred up again. Zhou could not bear to see his sister leave, but he could not say this openly. So he tried a roundabout way. He asked the palace maid to send flowers to Wenjiang, pretending it was just a normal greeting. Hidden inside the flowers, he slipped in a short poem he had written himself. The poem was not long in plain modern language. It roughly meant this: "In the courtyard, there is a peach tree. Its blossoms bright and beautiful. Growing by the gate, it should be plucked and kept close. If you do not pick it now, the wind will blow the blossoms away, and they will only turn into scattered dry petals." Thinking of that, one can only sigh. As soon as you hear it, you understand what he meant. Zhou was saying, "You should have stayed by my side. Now you are going far away to marry another lord, and all I can do is sigh and feel it is such a waste." When Wenjiang read the poem, she understood his feelings immediately. Her own suppressed emotions were pulled back to the surface, and she could not help replying with a poem of her own, which she also had someone secretly send back. Her reply poem, put into simple language, went something like this: "I too have a peach tree here, with fresh new shoots that are bright and full of life. If we do not pick them this year, it does not matter. There will still be another spring next year. Do not worry too much, and do not be too sad." These lines were, in fact, a vague promise. We cannot be together now, but maybe there will be another chance in the future. Do not lose hope. After Zhou read her answer, he became even less able to let go. He now knew that Wenjiang was not without feelings. She did respond. It was only that ritual and law were standing between them. Time moved quickly, and soon it was the agreed day to receive the bride. Duke Huan of Lu sent Prince Hui with a team to Qi to escort Wenjiang, because Duke Shi loved this daughter so deeply. He had already decided to personally send her all the way to the border of Lu, to fulfill what a father should do on her last journey out of his house. When Zhou heard that his father would personally escort the bride, he became even more restless. He hurried to see Duke Shi, and said, I've heard that my younger sister will marry Duke Wan of Lu. Qi and Lu already have a good relationship, and now they are becoming in-laws. This is something both sides can be happy about. Duke Wan did not come in person to fetch the bride, so by ritual, we should send a close family member on our side to escort her. You, father, are busy with state affairs and cannot solely leave the court. I may not be very talented, but I am willing to go in your place and bring my sister safely to Lu. These words sounded perfectly proper in terms of ritual, but they also clearly showed his personal motive. He wanted to use the escort journey as a chance to spend more time with Wen Jiang on the road. Duke Shi, however, shook his head and said, I have already told Duke Wan with my own mouth that I will send her myself. Once I have given my word, I cannot take it back. Before he finished speaking, someone came in to report, Duke Wan has already stopped his chariots at Wanyi and is waiting there specially for our bridal party. When Duke Shi heard that, he sighed. The state of Lu truly follows the rites. They have come halfway to meet us so that I will not have to travel the entire distance. Since they have shown us such courtesy, I even less can go back on my word and not go personally. Zhou had nothing more to say. He could only withdraw in silence. When Wen Jiang heard all this, she also felt an emptiness in her heart, as if some possible chance had just slipped away. She could only push that feeling back down. Day by day, the wedding date drew closer, until finally, a good day in early autumn arrived in the 9th month. On that day, when Zheng first went to the inner palace to bid farewell to all her father's consorts, then she returned to the eastern palace, specifically to say goodbye to Zhou. In the eastern palace, Zhou had prepared a wine feast for her, as a farewell banquet for his younger sister. The two of them sat facing each other, their eyes full of reluctance and sorrow. But sitting beside them was Zhou's official wife, the princess from Songlei Yuan, and there were palace maids that Duke Shi had specially assigned standing by the watch. Everything the brother and sister wanted to say stayed stuck in their chests. Nothing could be spoken out loud. They could only keep raising and lowering their cups, sighing over and over. When the banquet ended, the bridal chariots were already lined up in front of the palace gates. When Jiang put on her wedding robes and prepared to board the carriage, Zhou squeezed his way up to the front of the chariot and, taking advantage of the noise and confusion around them, whispered to her, Remember that poem, those words of tender reminder. Do not forget them. Standing by the carriage, when Jiang answered softly, Brother, take good care of yourself. There will be a day when we meet again. Then she climbed into the carriage. The bridal procession rolled slowly out through the gates of Qi, heading toward Wanyi. Along the way, Duke Shi personally escorted his daughter. When they reached Wanyi, Duke Wan of Lu was already there, waiting for the bridal party. The two rulers met, bowed to each other according to the rites, and Duke Wan set up a banquet to entertain Duke Shi and all the members of the escort party. Everyone who had come with the bride received some sort of reward. Once the escort ceremony was completed, Duke Shi took his leave of Duke Wan and started back toward Qi with his attendants. At the moment, he placed his daughter in another man's hands. Of course, he felt reluctance and sadness, but from the point of view of ritual, he had done everything a father should do. Duke Wan of Lu, for his part, led Wen Jiang back to the Lu capital and completed the formal wedding there. On one hand, Qi was a major power at that time. On the other, Wen Jiang's beauty and talent were famous among the feudal states. So Duke Wan respected her and adored her at the same time, pouring almost all his feelings into this new wife. Still uneasy, Duke Shi sent his younger brother, Ye Zhangnian, as envoy to Lu. He went to visit his brother-in-law and make sure greetings and gifts were properly delivered. With this kind of constant exchange back and forth, the relationship between Qi and Lu became closer and closer. Almost like family. Later generations, looking back at this story, often quoted a poem to sigh over it. The meaning was roughly this: between men and women, one must be especially careful about boundaries. Between brother and sister, even more so, one must keep proper distance. Yet these two siblings, at the moment of parting, still spoke words full of hidden meaning. It was those very hints that planted the seed for the chaos that would later explode inside the palace of Lu. Those later events will be told in another chapter. For now, we set them aside and turn to another line in the story. The growing conflict between King Wan of Zhou and Duke Zhuang of Zhen. On the Zhou side, King Wan had long been unhappy with Duke Zhuang. In earlier years, when Duke Zhuang attacked Song, he used the excuse of acting under the king's command to punish a disobedient state. He publicly announced this everywhere he went, claiming that he was fighting for the Son of Heaven. Of course, King Wan knew full well that he had never given such an order. He had been holding that anger in his heart the whole time. Later, he simply removed Duke Zhuang from his position as a key minister at court and handed all central power to Lord Guo Linfu instead, no longer letting the Lord of Zheng interfere in government. When Duke Zhuang heard of this, he was very displeased. He grumbled that our Zheng family has helped the Zhou royal house fight its wars for generations. Now they throw us aside just like that. Out of anger, he refused to come to court and pay homage for 5 full years. The longer King Wan thought about it, the more he felt he could not swallow this insult. He said to those around him, Wu Sheng of Zheng has no respect at all. If I do not punish him, the other lords will all learn from his example. Once the king's commands stop being taken seriously, the authority of the Son of Heaven will be worth nothing. I am planning to personally lead a campaign to punish him. Lord Guo Linfu tried to persuade him otherwise. He said, even so, Duke Zheng has the merits of several generations serving as high ministers. You suddenly stripped him of his power. So it is natural that he is upset and refuses to come to court for a while. Why must you personally go to war over this? You could simply issue an order and have the other feudal lords raise troops to attack Zheng. You can stay behind to oversee things. That way, you avoid personal danger, and you also keep the dignity of the king's position from being lowered. But King Wan had already been pushed past his limit. His face was dark and he said, Wu Sheng has insulted me more than once, in this life. There will never be peace between me and him. With that, he ordered the states of Kaiwei and Chen to raise troops and attack Zheng together. At this time, the state of Chen had just changed rulers. Marquis Bo of Chen had died, and his younger brother Prince too killed the original crown prince and seized the throne for himself. Many people in Chen were angry and refused to accept him as legitimate. Crowds of commoners were leaving the country in groups. King Wan ignored all this. He still ordered Chen to send troops. Prince Tu had only just taken the throne and did not dare disobey, so he had no choice but to grit his teeth, conscript soldiers, prepare chariots, and send the minister Bo Yuanzhu to lead Chen's forces and follow Zhou's campaign against Zhen. The states of Kasai and Wei each sent troops as well. King Wan then divided his army into 3 wings. He put Lord Guo Linfu in charge of the right wing, with the troops of Kai and Wei under his command. He put the Duke of Zhou, He Jian, in charge of the left wing, with Chen's troops under him. The king himself led the central army, ready to command everything from the middle. On the Zheng side, when Duke Shuang received the intelligence report that the king himself is leading an army to attack us, he immediately called all his ministers together to discuss what to do. For a while, not a single person in the hall dared to speak. Everyone knew that when you faced the banner of the king's personal expedition, any careless word could become a crime. In the end, it was the chief minister Zhou who stepped out first. He spoke very directly. This time, the Son of Heaven is leading the army in person to question us for not coming to court for many years. From the point of view of status and ritual, we are in the wrong. My suggestion is that you first send an envoy to admit fault and give him a step down, which is also a step down for us. Maybe there is still room to turn this around. Duke Zhuang's anger was burning. He said, First King Wan took away my power in the central court. Now he sends troops against Shang. The merits of our Zheng clan over generations are flowing away like water. If this time I cannot face him in person and break his sharp edge, there is a real risk that he will slowly swallow up the foundation our ancestors left us. Gao Qumi then offered his view The state of Chen has always had a good relationship with us. They likely sent troops this time only because they had to obey the king's command. The states of Kasai and Wei, on the other hand, have old grudges against us and will surely fight hard. The king's temper is hot right now. He is personally leading the army with strong momentum. If we go straight to meet his first wave head-on, we might not gain any advantage. It would be better to avoid his sharpest edge at the start. We can wait until his initial anger has faded a bit. Then look at the situation and decide whether to fight or make peace. At that time, we will have more options. Another minister, Prince Yuan, also spoke up. He said, "Strictly speaking, for a subject to fight, his ruler is against the rights. Once you decide to fight, it must be quick, not a long, dragging war. My abilities are not great, but I am willing to offer one plan." Duke Zhuang asked him, "What plan do you have?" Prince Yuan laid out his thinking step by step. Since King Wan has divided his army into 3 parts, we can do the same. Our left and right wings will each form square battle formations. The left wing to deal with the enemy's right wing, and the right wing to deal with the enemy's left wing. You, my lord, will personally lead the central army against the king's center, where he himself is located. Duke Zhuang then asked, "Will this arrangement really give us victory?" Prince Yuan explained in detail. He said, "The new Marquis of Chen took the throne by killing the rightful heir. The people of Chen do not accept him in their hearts. Now, he is only forcing himself to raise troops. He has no will to fight. If we concentrate our right wing and strike the Chen troops first, hitting them when they are unprepared, their army will collapse immediately. Next, we let our left wing quickly attack the combined forces of Tai and Wei. Once Tai and Wei hear that the army of Chen has already broken, they will naturally lose heart. They will not be able to withstand our charge and will also scatter dots at that point. Our left and right wings can join with the central army and turn together to attack the king's center. 3 forces surrounding 1. The odds of victory are very high." After listening, Duke Zhuang was very pleased. He said, "Your reading of the enemy is as clear as looking at your own palm. It seems that the line of the famous strategist Zi Feng has not truly died out with us." Just then, scouts returned from the front and reported, King Wan's army has already reached Zhou. The 3 main camps support each other closely. Duke Zhuang said, "As long as we first break one wing, the other 2 will be much easier to handle." He immediately gave the following orders. Minister Mambo would lead one force to block the enemy's right wing. Chief Minister Zhou would lead another to block the enemy's left wing. He himself would lead Gao Qiumi, Yuan Fan, Jia Shaiying, Zhu, Don, and other generals in the central army. After examining both sides' formations, Gao Qiumi made one more tactical suggestion. He said, "In my view, King Wan does know a bit of military strategy. This opponent is not like the ones we faced before. I hope you will adopt a formation called the fish scale formation." Duke Zhuang asked, "What is the fish scale formation?" Gao Qiumi explained very concretely. "We first line up 25 war chariots in a row at the front. Each chariot has 5 soldiers on it. Behind them, we place 25 infantrymen, keeping them close with no gaps. If someone on a chariot is wounded, a man from the rear steps up immediately to fill his place. The entire formation moves only forward, never back. This line of men and chariots will be like an iron wall pressing forward. It is very hard for the enemy to break, but very easy for us to push through them." Duke Zhuang nodded and said, "Good. We will do it your way." The 3 Xin armies formed up and slowly moved toward Zhou. When they arrived, they each set up camp, ready to fight the next day. On the Zhou side, when King Wan heard that Duke Zhuang had already come out to meet him, his anger flared up even more, and he wanted to lead the charge himself. Lord Guo Linfu urged him again and again, "The Son of Heaven does not need to rush to the front line. You should command from the central army." The next day, both sides lined up in full formation, facing each other. Duke Zhuang first issued an order to his troops. The left and right wings are not allowed to move on their own. Only when you see the flag of the central army opened and waving will you attack together. On King Wan's side, he had already prepared a long speech before the battle. He planned it carefully. When Duke Zhuang came out to the front to speak with him, he would scold him in front of both armies, listing all Zheng's faults not coming to court, faking royal commands, and so on, to crush the enemy's morale with his words first. But things did not go the way he had imagined. Duke Zhuang arranged his formations, but he never stepped out of the gate of his main line. He did not come forward, did not answer, and did not respond to any provocation. The Zheng side was so quiet that you could hardly hear a shout from within the ranks. King Wan waited and waited, growing more and more upset. At last, he ordered men to ride out and challenge the enemy. They shouted insults for a long time, but still there was no response from the Zheng army. The stalemate dragged on until almost midday. Duke Zhuang judged that by now the king's troops must be worn down in spirit. By this hanging in the air with nothing happening, only then did he finally give the order. Shang was to pull open the central army's great banner and raise it high. At the same time, the left and right wings beat their war drums together. The soldiers let out a mighty roar and charged forward. Mambo's unit drove straight at the Zhou left wing, the side with Chen's troops. The Chen soldiers had little will to fight. As soon as they saw the Zheng army rushing toward them, their formation fell into chaos. First, their lines broke. Then large groups turned and ran, crashing into and disrupting the troops under Duke Heyan's command. Duke Heyan had no choice but to retreat while trying to gather the fleeing soldiers. That in the end, it turned into a complete rout. On the other side, Chief Minister Zhou led his forces against the Zhou right wing, the combined army of Kai and Wei. When Taisai and Wei heard that Chen's army had already collapsed, their hearts naturally began to pound, with the Zheng troops charging hard at them. They barely resisted at all before breaking and running in all directions. Lord Guo Linfu saw his own line begin to waver. Standing in front of his chariot, he drew his sword and shouted, "Anyone who runs will be cut down." Using this threat, he barely managed to hold part of the army in place. Zhou saw this and did not dare press too hard, so he reined his troops in and advanced slowly instead. Taking advantage of that pause, Lord Guo Linfu kept his formation tight and slowly withdrew, managing to spare his wing from suffering heavy casualties in this battle. On the Zhou side, King Wan was sitting in the main camp of the central army. Outside, the sound of war drums suddenly grew very loud, like waves of thunder rolling in from far away. The moment he heard it, he knew the Zheng army had already pushed up. There was no way to avoid the battle that day. He had originally wanted to face Duke Xuang of Zheng directly, and he had even prepared a long string of insults in his head, planning to use this war as a chance to lecture that disrespectful Lord of Zheng in front of everyone. But before he could say a single word, he realized that something was wrong inside the central army itself. The soldiers were whispering to each other in the ranks. Some were looking around nervously. Some had faces so pale they almost looked sick. The men in the front kept turning their heads to look behind them, and the men in the rear kept craning their necks to see the front. You could feel that everyone's mind had already started to drift. The line was no longer steady. Why? Because the defeated soldiers from the left and right wings had already started running back toward the center. Everyone could see it clearly. Both the left and right armies were in very bad shape. They could not hold off the Zheng troops anymore. While they were watching their own people flee, they also saw clouds of dust rising in the distance, and the Zhang army moving forward like a dense wall, neat and steady, pressing closer and closer. Of course, the fear in their hearts grew stronger. At the very front of that wall was Zheng's fierce General Zhu Dun. Right behind him was Yang Fan, and then Manbo and Zhu, leading the troops who had just defeated the armies of Chen, Tai, and Wei, now closing in from both sides toward the central army. You can picture the scene. The Zhou line was being squeezed in the middle, as if two huge hands were pushing from both sides. Chariots overturned. War horses panicked and bolted through the ranks. Soldiers were knocked to the ground or shoved aside. Some fell and could not get back up. Some simply turned and ran. King Wan saw that the situation was turning bad and had no choice but to order a full retreat. He himself stayed at the very back of the column, falling back while directing the guards to hold off the pursuers. At this moment, Zhou of Zheng was standing on his war chariot. From a distance, he noticed a large, decorated parasol on the Zhou side. Under that parasol was a man waving his arms and giving directions. Clearly, he was the one commanding the army. Zhu thought, that person must be King Wan of Zhou. He narrowed his eyes and stared for a while. The more he looked, the more sure he felt. So he drew his bow all the way back, aimed at the man beneath the parasol, and let the arrow fly. The arrow cut across the chaotic battlefield and hit King Wan square in the left shoulder. Luckily for him, he was wearing heavy armor, so the arrow did not go in very deep dot. It only wounded his shoulder and was not fatal. Even so, it gave him and the entire Zhou army quite a shock. Seeing that his arrow had hit its mark, Zhu became even more excited. He urged his chariot forward, hoping to use the chaos to push through and capture the Son of Heaven alive. At that critical moment, Lord Guolinfu rushed over to protect the king. He blocked Zhu advance and engaged him head-on. Troops from both sides fought desperately around them in the confusion. On the other side, Yuan Fan and Manbo had also caught up. The forces of Zheng joined together, and the pressure on the Zhou army kept increasing. Just when the fighting was at its most intense, the retreat bell of Zhang's central army suddenly rang out across the field, fast and urgent. When Zhu, Dan, Yuan, Fan, and Menbo heard it, they knew their lord was ordering everyone to pull back. They had no choice but to fight while slowly retreating. The two sides separated for the moment. Once all Zheng soldiers had returned to their camp, King Wan also pulled his army back about 30 li and only then managed to stabilize things again and set up a new camp. The commander of the left wing, Duke Heijian of Zhou, came to see King Wan and confessed his failure first. He said, "We lost to Zheng because the troops from Chen hardly fought at all. That is why our side collapsed and ran." King Wan's face was dark. He knew very well in his heart that the real problem was his own rash decision to start this war and his poor choice of allies. He let out a long sigh and said, "This was my mistake in choosing people. I cannot blame anyone else." Back in the Zheng camp, Zhu and the others returned to report the battle to Duke Zhuang. Zhu was still full of excitement. He said to his lord, "I just now shot King Wan in the shoulder." He was clearly terrified. If we had chased a bit longer, we might have captured him alive. Why did you call us back at that moment? You can hear what Zhu meant. He felt that a chance to win immortal glory had been stopped by Duke Zhuang, and he could not help feeling regret. Duke Zhuang shook his head and explained slowly, "This time, we raised an army because the Son of Heaven failed to understand the truth, and repaid our service with resentment, to protect our country. We were forced to fight back. Thanks to all of you fighting with one heart, Zheng has not been crushed. That alone is already a great achievement. So how could I think of anything more on top of that? If we really captured the Son of Heaven, what would the rest of the world think of Zheng? And even just now, shooting the king's body with an arrow is already a serious crime of offending one's ruler. If the wound had been any worse, if King Wan had died at our hands, then I would forever bear the name of King Killer. That kind of crime can never be washed away." Jisoo stood by and nodded in agreement. He said, "The Lord is right. Right now, the military prestige of Zheng has been firmly established. King Wan has suffered a setback and will be wary of us from now on. From this point on, we should be pulling back our sharp edges, not pushing them further." He went on, "In my view, we should now take the initiative to send someone to the Zhou camp to ask after the king's health and say a few soft words. We want him to understand that arrow was not shot on your orders with the intention to harm him, but was simply an accident in the chaos of battle. In this way, we show that we know we have gone too far and at the same time, we eased the tension between us. Duke Shuang thought for a while and said, "This mission can only be done by you." He then gave the order to prepare rich gifts to be sent to King Wan as comfort for the troops. You can imagine how heavy this apology gift was. Zheng prepared 12 oxen, 100 sheep, and more than 100 wagon loads of grain, cloth, and other supplies. All of it was transported to the gate of the Zhou camp. That same night, Zhou entered the camp, first kneeling from a distance, then crawling forward step by step while speaking non-stop. The guilty minister Wu Shang, that is, Duke Zhuang himself, could not bear to watch his own country be destroyed. That is why he was forced to lead troops in self-defense. Because orders were not strict enough, the king's body was accidentally wounded. Wu Shang is deeply afraid in his heart. He has sent me in the middle of the night to pay his respects to your majesty, and to bring a few humble offerings, to comfort your majesty's army. He only begs that your majesty will pity his service in past years, and forgive him this one offense. After listening, King Wan's expression was hard to read, half shame, half anger. But he kept his face cold and said nothing. Only the tips of his ears quietly turned a bit red dot, seeing the tension in the air. Lord Guolinfu quickly stepped in to smooth things over. He said to the king, "Since Zhen Wusheng already knows he is guilty and has sent someone to admit fault, why not take this chance to forgive him? In this way, your majesty shows a generous heart and leaves Zheng a way to survive. Now that the battle has been fought and the lesson has been given, let us allow the envoy to thank you and go home." Listening to these words, King Wan's anger slowly cooled. In the end, he nodded and did not say anything more. Zhu knocked his head on the ground a few more times, then backed out of the camp. After leaving the central camp, he deliberately went around all the other camps, visiting each one in turn and asking, "How were your losses in today's battle? Is there anything Zheng can help you with?" He made sure that every courtesy was done. Later, the court historian wrote a poem to comment on all this. The idea was roughly, on the battlefield, Zheng's arrow struck the king's shoulder. On the surface, it looked like Zhang had pressed the royal house down. But in the very next moment, Duke Zhuang sent gifts and bowed his head to please the Son of Heaven. Making himself look small again, in war, he dared to stand firm against the king. After the war, he rushed to use ritual and courtesy to close the scene. This contrast between his attitude in war and his attitude in peace shows that in the spring and autumn period, the feudal lords dared to fight the Son of Heaven for face. But at the same time, no one could truly step outside the framework of Liu Ritual. Another poem openly mocked King Wan, saying he never should have personally led the army against Zheng. You take a fine pearl and use it to hit birds. You take the Son of Heaven and send him driving chariots at the front. You could have sent out just one written command to punish Zhang from afar. Instead, you insisted on going yourself and ended up being beaten by Zheng until you were covered in dust. Was Zheng truly so unafraid of royal power? When the fighting was over, King Guan led his troops back to Loi, Uyang. All along the way, he was in a foul mood, unable to swallow his anger. Once he was back in the capital, he had another idea. "I want to send out a proclamation to all the states, laying out Zhang Wusheng's crimes, his disrespect for the Son of Heaven, and his violation of ritual, and call on all the feudal lords to join me in punishing him." Lord Guolinfu hurried to stop him again. "Your Majesty, this campaign was launched in a hurry from the very beginning. You have already lost the battle. If you now write up this whole affair in a proclamation and send it across the land, is that not the same as personally telling the world that you have been defeated? Think about it, besides Chen, Wei, and Tai, the handful of states that went to war with you, most of the other feudal lords actually have good relations with Zheng. If you truly call on everyone to fight Zheng together, most of them will probably ignore you. If you cannot even gather an army, it will only make Zhang laugh behind your back and say, 'So this is all the power the king's command has.' Lord Guolinfu reminded him again. Do not forget, Zheng has already sent Zhou here to admit fault, and brought many gifts besides. If your majesty takes this chance to let them go, you can present it to the outside world as forgiving an old minister, giving Zheng a path to live, and leaving yourself some room as well. Listening to him, King Wan finally understood that if he kept making trouble, it would only hurt himself that, so he simply pretended that nothing had ever happened. He stopped mentioning Zheng in public, and the bitterness he held in his heart could only be swallowed by himself. The ruler of Kai, who had followed King Wan's army in this campaign, heard soldiers gossiping in the camp, and learned about the situation inside Chen. In Chen, Prince Tu had seized the throne by killing the rightful heir, so the people were very dissatisfied. The state was unstable. Many families were packing up and fleeing. When the Lord of Kai heard this, he felt this was the perfect chance. He thought, right now, Chen is busy trying to serve the king in war, and at the same time trying to calm its own people. Its own feet are not steady. If I march against them at this moment, I might gain everything in one strike. Later, if the king asks, I can say I was helping the Son of Heaven deal with a rebellious vassal. Once his mind was made up, he immediately ordered his army to turn around and head toward the border of Chen, ready to launch a surprise attack and take advantage of the fire. As for whether this sudden strike would succeed and whether Chen would really be swallowed up in one bite, that is what the next part of the story will tell.
Sky in light, Nua healed the broken heart. Fuxi traced the world's design. Every age leaves stories bright. Yaya dynasty shaped bronze. Shang dynasty cast oracle bones. Thou dynasty built right. Qin dynasty forged the great walls. Han dynasty opened Silk Road winds. Three Kingdoms dynasty turned war to tales. Zheng dynasty led ink and mountains bloom. Sui dynasty carved the Grand Canal. Tang dynasty crowned the world with crowned the world with art. Song dynasty rays learn